Welcome to Coffee with Ronnie. How are you all? I have coffee today. And it's still super hot in Florida. I see everyone, wearing sweatshirts and things. And I have to say, I'm jealous. We don't really have autumn here. And apparently we're not going to get one this year until Christmas. I don't know. Hey, I have a couple things I want to talk about today. And today is a little different. And part of it is I don't feel 100% prepared. I have a big question, and it really is more of a discussion than a lesson today. Not that I feel like I'm giving you all lessons, but this is a discussion that I want to have. But first, I just want to tell you about one thing that happened this week, and that is my book came out. My book called Gratitude with Attitude. And I'm very happy with this book. It's really thick. It's a guided journal. But here's how I feel about gratitude. I'm a fan. I believe in it. I believe that taking a moment each day to say, hey, that was really cool, and I'm very grateful for the things in my life and the people in my life. But I'm a terrible gratitude journaler, shall I say. All of them, the ones that I have seen, feel really serious, and there's way too much space to fill out. And so when I thought about doing this, of how could I make it for the ones of us that have the monkey minds, what kind of format would that look like? So my book, here, I'm just going to show you a basic page. There's like half a page per day. So it's not even a full page. It's just a half a page. And each one, it's cute drawings, and you can doodle if you want. That's fine. But they're very fast. Everything's fast. There's a place every day to put down 3 fast things you're grateful for. Kind of things that made you smile, a tiny victory, what was awesome that day. And so it's a really user-friendly gratitude journal, but I'm really happy with it. And then there's a little tiny space for tomorrow's intention. So if you want to just do this at the end of your day, I guess you could do it in the morning, and then it could be today's intention. But I didn't think about that when I was writing it. But in the intention, it's really to say, tomorrow I want to feel peaceful or uber productive, or whatever that intention is for your next day. I want to be kinder. So there's a little spot. Anyway, but here's what I'm going to tell you about the process of that book coming out. Okay, number 1, be generous with your invitation or your introductions. And I've talked about this before, that it really, if something's not going to work for you, but you know someone, introduce them to the next person. Always a good thing to do. And that is what happened, how I met this particular editor. A friend of mine who is an author and published an illustrator knew that this publisher was looking for was not in her wheelhouse. She said, you should talk to my friend Ronnie. We had a conversation. It turned out that was not a scenario that was going to work. They were just going to go in a different direction, and that's fine. But we had this really great conversation and left the door open. The second thing from this process was always to remember that if opportunity is knocking, you should answer the door, and or the phone or the email, and just follow through on things. You never know. You might go, yeah, that's really not me. I don't think so, whatever. Answer the call. Answer the call and find out, because sometimes we assume things that are not true. Really? We do that? And so answer the call. When opportunity is a knockin', answer it. Might not be right, or it might not be right now. The third thing is to stay open. Stay open to, hey, this isn't right for us, but let's continue this conversation. And then here's what was very interesting. So I've been having this conversation, and we're talking over 2 2 and a half years, maybe. It wasn't like last Thursday. you just have to stay open. And in the meantime, I wasn't like sitting around going, oh my gosh, I hope they pick me. I hope they pick me. I hope they pick me. I was doing other things, but keeping that line of communication open. And then this is very interesting. On the first Coffee with Ronnie I did last February, I got off the call, wiped the sweat from my brow because I was so stressed out by doing the first live Coffee with Ronnie. And I got an email from a different editor at this publishing house that basically said, hey, I just saw your live and we really like this point you made. And we know we've talked to you in the past. Would you like to talk to us again? I'm like, sure, let's have a conversation. And the next thing you know, we have, I had this concept. We were talking about some things and they were kind of like, yeah, maybe. And I said, well, how about this idea? And then it became a book. And now I'm working on my second book with them. So the lesson being, answer the call, be generous with your introductions, and always have the conversation. Always have the conversation. It's kind of like dating. Like you could go out with someone and you're like, that did not work at all, but you end up with a funny story. That's how some of these things work. So have the conversation when it is presented to you. And here's the other thing. If the conversation, there's an opportunity for you to have a conversation, you don't have to do a lot of talking. You can do a lot of listening and find out if it's a situation you're interested in, or if there are people you want to work with, or they're not. But always have the conversation, always. As I said early on, in just minutes ago, it feels like, I have a question that I want to explore. And that is, has been a big conventional wisdom, and you can hear this all the time, is that we are supposed to find our niche and really niche down on who we are and what we do. And we should be very clear on that and putting those brackets around what we do, which I believe to a point. So I understand that, so that it makes it easy for potential clients to figure out who you are and not get confused about what your gig is. But I feel like that is becoming kind of limiting. Now, part of this is, when I don't want to feel like every time I'm on here that you guys are like, well, that's the gospel truth. I mean, I'm not saying anything that's not truthful, but I don't have all the answers. And this is a thing that I'm sort of noticing, observing in the world, and noticing in my own development as an artist and as a business person, that when we put those fences around things too closely, we sort of lose opportunities for other things that might come our way. And that is a question I just want to talk about, that, to see if you feel that way or have felt the pressure to be one thing when you feel like you're leaving a whole other part of you behind. Because, particularly in the market, when you want to go really specifically into this market of marketing our creative ideas and designs out there in the world, a lot of us are doing different things to sort of patchwork together a living. And, we design things, we put our work out on Etsy or other downloadable type situations. We might do print on demand. We might teach, as well as license our art. And so we're kind of putting a lot of these things together. Now, usually there's some thread that ties those together: your look, your concept. Those things are all just opportunities to move that work out into the world. But sometimes we do stuff that's really different. And how do you express that to people without confusing them? So that's something I'm thinking about. I was going to say struggling with, but I'm not really struggling with it. I'm just observing it and seeing how is the best way to maximize our opportunities, and not going insane trying to run 6 simultaneous businesses because of all our different things that we do. But how do we marry the different facets of ourselves and our different skills and talents into something that is under the umbrella of who you are? And how do you communicate that, and how do you express that? So that is where I am right now on that question. And I would love to know what you guys think about that. But right now it feels like a really tight niche, at least for me, feels really limiting. And as I developed more of the coaching side of my world over the last year or 2 years, I have, read a lot about coaching, like, how do you do this? And like any business, if you will, there's a lot of people trying to sell you really expensive programs. And someday we're going to talk about the myth of the really expensive program. So don't buy one on anything until you talk to me. So the coaching world is very much in this. You need to know exactly who your customer is. You know exactly who you're selling to so that you can sell them on your program. And I just feel like that is, it feels limiting to me, because I do have different things that I do, like write and draw. And if you were over on my website, you would see that the front page of my website isn't front and center, I'm a coach. And I changed the Facebook banner to say, I write, I draw, I help people. And I thought, that's really what I do. On any given day, I am doing one of those 3 things. Actually, on any given day, I'm doing all of those things. But all of those are under the umbrella of who I am as a creative person. And the reason I can be a coach is because I write and draw. And so it's a very interesting idea when you can have a little wider idea of who you are and able to communicate that. I'm not saying I'm finished with being able to communicate that by writing down 6 words, because it's sort of a holistic idea of how that's going to be communicated. I just don't know what that is yet, because I don't know what that is yet. It is so hard because I love so many artistic areas. I have felt stifled many times over this issue. Yes, Kelly, I totally understand that. And I think we're coming to a greater, kind of a wider idea of what that looks like. I think that there has to be some thread that pulls them all together, that if you literally stitch things together, it would make sense. For one thing, what you put out in the world needs to be of good quality. You can't just say, hey, I do this thing over here and it's horrible. And, not that any of us would ever do that. But I mean, I think that you have to be selective and still curate what you're putting out to the world. But I think that I would love to see what that widening looks like a little bit of what we're putting out there, and to help people understand that, so that they don't go, oh, she's this, she's not that. And part of us, I mean, we've always said that, like, oh, don't confuse the clients. But I think there's a way to say that. For instance, I started following this fascinating person on YouTube. She goes by Evelyn on the internets, I think. I should know that. Anyway, she does this incredible content. She's hilarious. And I just went to her website, because she does a bunch of stuff. She's a content creator. She speaks, she does all these different things. And right on her website, which is like the super coolest website ever, it says what I do. And like, boom, boom, these are the 4 kind of avenues you can go to. But it's all her. It's all, the look of it is completely authentic to who she is. And so there's a voice there but she does a whole bunch of stuff. And I think that somewhere in here, we're going to find what that is. And the other thing about when you choose to, or have been advised to go super niche on what you are doing, it leaves no room for evolution. It leaves no room for you to say, I'm kind of leaving this behind and moving slowly over here. And I think that is the beauty of having just a little wider, broader description of what you do, or an understanding of what you do, so that you have those options in front of yourself, because we are not, my video just stopped, which is always just a joy when you're talking live and all of a sudden you're not. Anyway, I was getting to the point, it was a point so important that I wrote it on a Post-it note this morning about this idea of if we niche ourselves too far, what happens? And here's what I wrote. We are not one stagnant entity. We are living, breathing, evolving dynamos of change and growth. That's who we are. We are like organisms that morph and change and move, and we're not this thing like, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is the thing that I do. And sometimes you are that. Sometimes you are for a period of time. But when you position yourself in this box, unless you're got the, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but if you're in the box, bring a steak knife with you so you can cut holes in it. Like when we were making, houses out of refrigerator boxes when we were kids. Bring the steak knife with you so you can cut the hole in the box. But, and I just apologize for that visual and that metaphor, whatever, it's what we got. But I just feel like we have to make sure that there's air in the box. There's air for you to change and move and grow and respond to markets that you might want to respond to. But if you have put yourself into this place, you go, well, that would be weird for me to start doing that. What is everybody going to say? That I've told everybody I'm this and now I'm doing this or want to do this. It feels like whatever you were doing before wasn't authentic. So if we can be a little broader, and I don't know what those words are yet, for you, for me, for what I'm trying to say here, I don't know the exact way to do this. This is why I want to have this conversation, and this is what I'm exploring in my brain about how do we have this conversation? How do we make it easy for people to say, got it, you do this and this and this, and I totally understand that, without you standing there going, and then, and then this other thing, where you're just yammering on about stuff. We need to be able to be succinct and clear about it, but leave enough space to grow and change and evolve as a creative, as a teacher, as someone who wants to bring more to the world. Wow. I need some caffeine on that one. Kim, thing rings so true to me. Oh, good. And hi. So I would love to know how you guys feel about this. We can talk now. I'm so thankful, not to bring this back to my book on gratitude, but I am so thankful that we live in a time that we have these opportunities to bring ourselves out to the world in a way, because of the internet, because of social media, that we are able to bring ourselves out to the world without a whole bunch of middlemen or a whole bunch of permission givers. We get to be the permission giver. I just made that up, so whatever. But to me, this is what's really exciting about the place that we live, that we've thrown a lot of the rules out the window. And I think we ought to start rethinking this one. Let's rethink this one. I agree, and yet any kind of change is hard and scary. Maybe that is just me. I don't think change is ever easy until some things are easy because you're sick of it. You're sick of feeling a certain way. You're sick of the same conversations with people. You're sick of drama, whatever those things are. When you're sick of something, then you're like, I'm done. But most things aren't as cut and dried as that. Most things are not that cut and dried. And I really encourage people to watch that Netflix special with Brene Brown about courage and vulnerability. I think that is a beautiful expression of how a lot of this works. But yeah, it is scary. It's scary because we are so used to, that is of course the downside. I mean, for part of me feels like such freedom because of the way the world works right now, that we can We can start our own show called Coffee with Ronnie if we want to. We can do all kinds of things. That the barriers are gone. The permission givers are not important to us. But the flip side is the vulnerability of other people criticizing you for doing whatever you choose to do. And there is no shortage of those people. So Barb, totally understand that it's not always easy, but most of the time when I have moved to something new, it's because I'm sick of what was. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. And sometimes that's a gut check to just say, I'm done. David, I found that it's just the nature of being a freelance illustrator that you have to reinvent yourself every 10 years or so and go off and try new avenues of creativity. I mean, whatever that time marker is, it might be different for other people. And there are some people that find what they do, and they just have this style and they continue through their entire career doing that and are quite happily doing so. I'm not sure if we live in that kind of market now that you would have that long of an arc of opportunities, but it depends. And here's the beauty of what we do and being of a certain age, say, for instance, is that you don't leave your experience behind. You don't leave the confidence behind because you're doing something new. You have already proved that you can do stuff. You've proved that by the fact that you did stuff. And that may look like I raised kids. Well, I've never had a creative career, but that doesn't, I have proved that I can get human beings from here to there. And that's pretty big. And so we have to remember that we get to take all the good stuff with us. We get to kick the bad stuff to the curb, or we can just stuff it down. But that is the beautiful thing, is that, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, is leaving those gates open a little bit for the good stuff to flow in and for your good stuff to move out to the world. As soon as we shut the gates and say, this is what I am, I think that's when our evolution stops. I am fascinated by this because I think we heard that so much. The part of it is, there's the whole idea of the elevator speech, which I believe in, because you go to enough things and they go, what do you do? And you say you're an artist. So they immediately say, well, they kind of don't care. But if you can get that tighter and say, well, I design, coloring books for adults, that opens a conversation. Or if you can say, I do colorful patterns for wallpaper and home furnishings, that's interesting. So when you can put that into some sort of context that people can talk about, that's great. But on the other hand, depending on the person, you just go, I'm an artist, and then you can go, oh, well, you must be a flake, and broke. Having a way to express that is important. And if we're doing this for business, of course, we need to find a way for potential clients, potential customers to look at it and go, oh, I get it. But here's the other thing. This is going to be my final point. And you're all thinking, thank goodness. When you do something that's a little out of the ordinary, and we get to know about that, that makes you super interesting. I do want to know things like, I paint puppies and kittens, but I'm also an Olympic fencer. Is that what they call them when they do fencing? I don't know. Somebody tell me what that is called. But I would be interested if you did competitive something else, or I drive race cars, or I'm in a demolition derby every weekend. I'd be like, what? That's so interesting. So we want to know that little thing. We don't have to just present ourselves as, this is who I am, and I'm super cool, and I'm this thing. We want to know the whole person. That's the holistic approach to this world that looks a little wonky right now. We get to be whatever we choose to be, and we get to express ourselves how we choose to be and bring our best work to the world. And, just put ourselves out there, because it's not always easy, but that's the only way you get there. It's the only way you get there. So I very curious about how you guys feel about this. I will try to craft that into a easier question mark, but otherwise, life is fabulous. Not always, not every second, but I just want you to know that this is a warm, safe place for you to come to. That is my entire goal. But I want this to be a warm, loving environment for you to hang out at on Thursdays at 3 or in the replay. So I am going to say goodbye. And as always, I think you're adorable. And stay caffeinated, my friends. Take care, sweeties. See you next week. Bye.